Indo-Scythians is a term used to refer to Scythians, who migrated into parts of Central and Northern South Asia, from the middle of the 2nd century BC to the 4th century AD. The first Saka king in South Asia was Mawas, who established Saka power in Gandara and gradually extended supremacy over northwestern India. Indo-Scythian rule in northwestern India ended with the last western satrap Rudrasimha III in 395 CE, who was defeated by the Indian emperor Chandragupta II of the Gupta Empire. The power of the Saka rulers started to decline in the 2nd century CE after the Indo-Scythians were defeated by the South Indian Emperor Gautamiputra Satakani of the Satavahana dynasty. Later the Saka kingdom was completely destroyed by Chandragupta II of the Gupta Empire in the 4th century. The invasion of India by Scythian tribes from Central Asia, often referred to as the Indo-Scythian invasion, played a significant part in the history of South Asia as well as nearby countries. In fact, the Indo-Scythian War is just one chapter in the events triggered by the nomadic flight of Central Asians from conflict with tribes such as the Zhormu in the 2nd century AD, which had lasting effects on Bactria, Kabul, and India, as well as far-off Rome in the west, and more nearby to the west in Parthia. However, Italo Ronca, in his detailed study of Ptolemy's chapter V, marks the statement, "The land of the Sakai belongs to nomads. They have no towns but dwell in forests and caves," as spurious origins. The ancestors of the Indo-Scythians are thought to be Saka's tribes, one group of Indo-European speakers that makes an early appearance on the Xinjiang stage is the Saka. Saka is more a generic term than a name for a specific state or ethnic group. Saka tribes were part of a cultural continuum of early nomads across Siberia and the central Eurasian steppe lands from Xinjiang to the Black Sea. Like the Scythians whom Herodotus describes in Book 4 of his history, Sakas were Iranian-speaking horse nomads who deployed chariots in battle, sacrificed horses, and buried their dead in barrows or mound tombs called kurgans. Yuezhi expansion in the 2nd century BC. A fresh nomadic movement started among the Central Asian tribes, producing lasting effects on the history of Rome in Europe, Parthia in Western Asia, and Bactria, Kabul, and India in the east in southern Asia. Recorded in the annals of the Han Dynasty and other Chinese records, this great tribal movement began after the Yuezhi tribe was defeated by the Zhormu, fleeing westwards after their defeat and creating a domino effect as they displaced other Central Asian tribes in their path. According to these ancient sources, Modu Shani of the Zhormu tribe of Mongolia attacked the Yuezhi and evicted them from their homeland between the Kilian Shan and Dunhuang, leaving behind a remnant of their number. Most of the population moved westwards. Early Indian literature records military alliances between the Sakas, Kambodgis, Pallavas and Paradas. Ancient Puranic traditions mention several joint invasions of India by Scythians. The conflict between the Bahu Sagara of India and the Haihaya Kamboya Saka Pallava Parada is well known as the war fought by 5 hordes. The Sakas, Yavanas, Tusharis and Kambodgis also fought the Kurukshetra war under the command of Sudakshina Kamboya. Around 175 BC, the Yuezhi tribes were defeated by the Zhormu tribes, and fled west into the Ili River area. There, they displaced the Sakas, who migrated south into Fergana and Sogdian. According to the Chinese historical chronicles, the Yuezhi attacked the king of the Sai, who moved a considerable distance to the south, and the Yuezhi then occupied his lands. Sometime after 155 BC, the Yuezhi were again defeated by an alliance of the Wusun and the Zhormu, and were forced to move south, again displacing the Scythians, who migrated south towards Bactria in present Afghanistan, and southwest closer towards Parthia. The Sakas seem to have entered the territory of the Greco-Bactrian kingdom around 145 BC, where they burnt to the ground the Greek city of Alexandria on the Oxus. The Yuezhi remained in Sogdiana on the northern bank of the Oxus, but they became suzerains of the Sakas in Bactrian territory, as described by the Chinese ambassador Zhang Qian, who visited the region around 126 BC. In Parthia, between 138–124 BC, the Sakas tribes of the Massagetæ and Saka or Sea came into conflict with the Parthian Empire, winning several battles, and killing successively King Phraates II and King Artabanus I. The Parthian king Mithridates II finally retook control of parts of Central Asia, first by defeating the Yuezhi in Sogdiana in 115 BC, and then defeating the Scythians in Parthia and Sistan around 100 BC. After their defeat, the Yuezhi tribes migrated relatively far to the east into Bactria, which they were to control for several centuries, and from which they later conquered northern India to found the Kushan Empire. Settlement in Sakistan. The Sakas settled in areas of eastern Iran, still called after them Sistan. From there, they progressively expanded into present Afghanistan and the Indian subcontinent, where they established various kingdoms, and where they are known as Indo-Scythians. The Arsacid Emperor Mithridates II had scored many successes against the Scythians and added many provinces to the Parthian Empire, and apparently the Scythian hordes that came from Bactria were also conquered by him. A section of these people moved from Bactria to Lake Helmand in the wake of Yukai pressure and settled about Drangyan, a region which later came to be called Sakistana of the Scythian Sakai, towards the end of 1st century BC. The region is still known as Sistan. Sakistan or Sistan of Drangyana may not only have been the habitat of the Saka alone but may also have contained population of the Pallavas and the Kambojas. The rock edicts of King Ashoka only refer to the Yavanas, Kambojas and the Gandaras in the northwest, but no mention is made of the Sakas, who immigrated in the region more than a century later. It is thus likely that the immigrant Saka populations who settled in today's Afghanistan did so among or near the Kambojas and nearby Greek cities. Numerous scholars believe that during centuries immediately preceding Christian era, there had occurred extensive social and cultural admixture among the Kambojas and Yavanas, the Sakas and Pallavas, and the Kambojas, Sakas, and Pallavas etc., such that their cultures and social customs had become almost identical. The presence of the Sakas in Sakistan in the 1st century BC is mentioned by Isidore of Charax in his Parthian Stations. He explained that they were bordered at that time by Greek cities to the east, and the Parthian-controlled territory of Arachosia to the south. Beyond is Sakastana of the Scythian Saka, which is also Paratasena, 63 Shurna. There are the city of Barda and the city of Min and the city of Palacenta and the city of Sigil. In that place is the royal residence of the Saka, and nearby is the city of Alexandria, and 6 villages. Parthian Stations. 18. Indo-Scythian kingdoms. Abhira to Surastrin. The first Indo-Scythian kingdom in the Indian subcontinent occupied the southern part of what is now Pakistan, in the areas from Abhira to Surastrin, from around 110 to 80 BC. They progressively further moved north into Indo-Greek territory until the conquest of Mathura. 80 BC. The 1st century AD periplus of the Erythraean Sea describes the Scythian territories there. Beyond this region, the continent making a wide curve from the east across the depths of the bays, there follows the coast district of Scythia, which lies above toward the north, the whole marshy, from which flows down the river Cynthus, the greatest of all the rivers that flow into the Erythraean Sea, bringing down an enormous volume of water. This river has 7 mouths, very shallow and marshy, so that they are not navigable, except the one in the middle, at which by the shore is the market town, Barbaricum. Before it there lies a small island, and inland behind it is the metropolis of Scythia, Minagara. The Indo-Scythians ultimately established a kingdom in the northwest, based in Taxila, with 2 great satraps, one in Mathura in the east, and one in Surastran in the southwest. In the southeast, the Indo-Scythians invaded the area of Ujjain, but were subsequently repelled in 57 BC by the Malwa king Vikramaditya. To commemorate the event, Vikramaditya established the Vikrama era, a specific Indian calendar starting in 57 BC. More than a century later, in AD 78, the Sakas would again invade Ujjain and establish the Saka era, marking the beginning of the long-lived Saka Western Satraps kingdom. Gandara and Punjab. The presence of the Scythians in northwestern India during the 1st century BCE was contemporary with that of the Indo-Greek kingdoms there, and it seems they initially recognized the power of the local Greek rulers. Maus first conquered Gandara and Taxila around 80 BCE, but his kingdom disintegrated after his death. In the east, the Indian king Vikrama retook Ujjain from the Indo-Scythians, celebrating his victory by the creation of the Vikrama era. Indo-Greek kings again ruled after Maus, and prospered, as indicated by the profusion of coins from kings Apollodotus II and Hippostratus. Not until Aziz I, in 55 BC, did the Indo-Scythians take final control of northwestern India, with his victory over Hippostratus. Sculpture. Several stone sculptures have been found in the early Saka layer in the ruins of Sirkap, during the excavations organized by John Marshall. Several of them are toilet trays roughly imitative of earlier, and finer, Hellenistic ones found in the earlier layers. Marshall comments that, "We have a praiseworthy effort to copy a Hellenistic original but obviously without the appreciation of form and skill which were necessary for the task." From the same layer, several statuettes in the round are also known, in very rigid and frontal style. Bhimmaran casket. Aziz is connected to the Bhimmaran casket, one of the earliest representations of the Buddha. The casket was used for the dedication of a stupa in Bhimmaran, near Jalalabad in Afghanistan, and placed inside the stupa with several coins of Aziz. This event may have happened during the reign of Aziz, or slightly later. The Indo-Scythians are otherwise connected with Buddhism, and it is indeed possible they would have commended the work. Mathura area in central India. The Indo-Scythians conquered the area of Mathura over Indian kings around 60 BCE. Some of their satraps were Hagamusha and Hagana, who were in turn followed by the Saka great satrap Rajuvula. The Mathura lion capital, an Indo-Scythian sandstone capital in crude style, from Mathura in central India, and dated to the 1st century CE, describes in Koroshthi the gift of a stupa with a relic of the Buddha, by Queen Nadazikasa, the wife of the Indo-Scythian ruler of Mathura, Rajuvula. The capital also mentions the genealogy of several Indo-Scythian satraps of Mathura. Rajuvula apparently eliminated the last of the Indo-Greek kings Strata II around 10 CE, and took his capital city, Sagala. The coinage of the period, such as that of Rajuvula, tends to become very crude and barbarized in style. It is also very much debased, the silver content becoming lower and lower, in exchange for a higher proportion of bronze, an alloying technique suggesting less than wealthy finances. The Mathura lion capital inscriptions attest that Mathura fell under the control of the Sakas. The inscriptions contain references to Karasta Kamuyo and Ayazi Kamuya. Yuvaraja Karas was the son of Arta, as attested by his own coins. Arta is stated to be brother of King Moga or Maus. Princess Ayazi Kambojaka, also called Kambojaka, was the chief queen of Shaka Mahakshatrapa Rajuvula. Kamboya's presence in Mathura is also verified from some verses of epic Mahabharata which are believed to have been composed around this period. This may suggest that Sakas and Kambojas may have jointly ruled over Mathura, Uttar Pradesh. It is revealing that Mahabharata verses only attest the Kambojas and Yavanas as the inhabitants of Mathura, but do not make any reference to the Sakas. Probably, the epic has reckoned the Sakas of Mathura among the Kambojas or else have addressed them as Yavanas. unless the Mahabharata verses refer to the previous period of invasion-occupation by the Yavanas around 150 BC. After Rajavula, several successors are known to have ruled as vassals to the Kushans, such as the great satrap Karapalana and the satrap Vanaspara, who are known from an inscription discovered in Sarnath, and dated to the 3rd year of Kanishka, in which they were paying allegiance to the Kushans. Pataliputra. The text of the Yuga Purana describes an invasion of Pataliputra by the Scythians sometimes during the 1st century BC, after 7 great kings had ruled in succession in Sakata following the retreat of the Yavanas. The Yuga Purana explains that the king of the Sakas killed 1/4 of the population, before he was himself slain by the Kalinga king Shatta and a group of Sabalas. Kushan and Indo-Parthian conquest. After the death of Asas, the rule of the Indo-Scythians in northwestern India was shattered with the rise of the Indo-Parthian ruler Gondophares in the last years of the 1st century BC. For the following decades, a number of minor Scythian leaders maintained themselves in local strongholds on the fringes of the loosely assembled Indo-Parthian Empire, some of them paying formal allegiance to Gondophares I and his successors. During the latter part of the 1st century AD, the Indo-Parthian overlordship was gradually replaced with that of the Kushans, one of the 5 tribes of the Yuezhi who had lived in Bactria for more than a century, and were now expanding into India to create a Kushan empire. The Kushans ultimately regained northwestern India from around AD 75, and the area of Mathura from around AD 100, where they were to prosper for several centuries. Western Kshatrapa legacy. Indo-Scythians continued to hold the area of Sistan until the reign of Bahram II, and held several areas of India well into the 1st millennium. Kathiawar and Gujarat were under their rule until the 5th century under the designation of Western Kshatrapa, until they were eventually conquered by the Gupta Emperor Chandragupta II. The Brihat Katha Manjari of the Shmendra informs us that around AD 400 the Gupta king Vikramaditya had unburdened the sacred earth of the barbarians like the Shakas, Melekshas, Kambodgis, Yavanas, Tusharas, Parisikas, Hunnas, etc., by annihilating these sinners completely. The 10th century Kavyami Mamsa of Rajshekhar still lists the Shakas, Tusharas, Vokanas, Hunnas, Kambodgis, Barlikas, Pallavas, Tangana, Turukshas, etc., together and states them as the tribes located in the Uttarapatha division. Indo-Scythian coinage. Indo-Scythian coinage is generally of a high artistic quality, although it clearly deteriorates towards the disintegration of Indo-Scythian rule around AD 20. A fairly high quality but rather stereotypical coinage would continue in the Western satraps until the 4th century. Indo-Scythian coinage is generally quite realistic, artistically somewhere between Indo-Greek and Kushan coinage. It is often suggested Indo-Scythian coinage benefited from the help of Greek zealots. Indo-Scythian coins essentially continue the Indo-Greek tradition, by using the Greek language on the obverse and the Kharosthi language on the reverse. The reverse of their coins typically show Greek divinities. Buddhist symbolism is present throughout Indo-Scythian coinage. In particular, they adopted the Indo-Greek practice since Menander I of showing divinities forming the Vitaka mudra with their right hand, or the presence of the Buddhist lion on the coins of the same 2 kings, or the Triratana symbol on the coins of Xionizers.